Let's get started. Thanks all for joining. Thank you. This is our second Map to Mobility webinar. And today we're going to be talking about selecting and purchasing an accessible van. We have an amazing panel today who are going to be your guides. They're all mobility specialists with United Access in various locations around the country. And between them, they have over 40 years experience helping people find the best solution for them. So I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves and have them give you a little background, and then they're going to toss it back to me. We'll go through some housekeeping, and then we'll get started with the presentation. So Adam, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Great, thank you. My name is Adam Lane. I am a mobility specialist at our Oklahoma City location. I've been with the company for 6.5 years. I had a spinal cord injury in 2007 from a motorcycle accident at the T10 level, and I'm excited to be here and share some of my experience with everybody. The next person on our panel will be Ryan.
Thanks, Adam. Again, I'm Ryan Green with United Access here in Lenexa, Kansas, which is basically southern portion of Kansas City. I've been with this with United Access about 5 years. I was injured in a car accident back in 1996. I'm a C7 level quadriplegic. I spent many years using a manual chair, transferring in and out of cars, using hand controls, but then moved into a power chair and purchased a wheelchair accessible van for myself back in 2012. The place I bought the van from, which was Performance Mobility in Portland, Oregon, which is now United Access. A shout out to anybody listening in Portland, Oregon. But that's where I was living at the time. They offered me a job as part of my purchase with Performance Mobility at the time, and I'm still with the company today. So coming up next is Stephen Kinsler.
Hello, my name is Stephen Kinsler. I am a mobility specialist in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm actually just to the north of where Ryan is. I've been with United Access since 2004, started originally in the marketing department, actually kind of got that started up in the St. Louis area, and then I moved to Kansas City about 10 years ago. I have sustained a spinal cord injury due to a rare viral infection in 1993. So I can actually proclaim that I've been in some of the oldest wheelchair accessible vans around since I started with the company. I have one time been in a 1997 Dodge Grand Caravan, so I had that wonderful experience. But what I have learned is that over the years, they've gotten much better, and that experience of having that wheelchair accessible vehicles allowed me to do a lot of other things in my life besides just work. I also have a family of 3, and we go everywhere. And thanks to that van, it makes things a little bit easier for me. Up next is Ashton.
Thank you, Stephen. Hi, guys. My name is Ashton Kennerly. I'm a mobility specialist here in the Houston area. Work here at United Access in Northwest Houston. Been doing so for the last 5 years. I encountered a motorcycle accident back in 2012 that left me confined to a manual wheelchair. I use a Twilight manual wheelchair now, and I'm paralyzed from the just about waist down T9. I've originally inquired about driving aids and different mobility options with adaptive driving access back when it was ADA, and now we're United Access. So I didn't think that I would ever be in the mobility industry, but the opportunity presented itself, and so here we are. I'll pass it back on to you, Mo.
Great, thanks everybody. We wanted to introduce this symbol and the acronym NMEDA. It's the National Mobility Dealer Association, which United Access is a proud member of. Ashton's going to get into this a lot more in detail, but this is a trade association that we belong to, and the ultimate goal of this is to make sure our customers are driving safe and reliable equipment. So you'll see this throughout the presentation, so we just wanted to kind of flirt it out, and then Ashton will go into a lot more detail later on. So our agenda today, so Adam's going to take us through what are accessible vans, what are my options, and what are the features and benefits. Ryan's going to go into the needs analysis portion and what is that and why is that important. Stephen's going to get to the fun part of selecting a vehicle and going through paperwork and what that looks like. And then Ashton's going to talk about some additional equipment that you can add on to an accessible van, and then also give us a little deep dive into Namita and who they are. So a couple of things, this meeting is being recorded, so if you have to step away, it'll be on our YouTube channel tomorrow. We'll send out a link to everybody. We've got some great questions submitted for people that registered, so we're going to go through a ton of questions. But if you have questions throughout, you can type them in the chat that's at the bottom of your screen. If we have time, we will get to them. If not, we'll have somebody reach out to you after. And then again, this is the start of a conversation. We're going to go through a lot of information. At the end, you're going to get a survey to letting us know how we did, and then what you would like to see for future webinars and other things. So we're going to get started. I'm going to pass it over to Adam, and let's get started.
Great. Thank you. Again, my name is Adam Lane, and for those of you that have joined since we started, I'm at the Oklahoma City location of United Access, and we wanted to start off with just a very broad overview of what a wheelchair accessible vehicle is. We do all kinds of different modifications to vehicles, but to make them actually wheelchair accessible, it is a vehicle that's been modified either by increasing the interior size of the vehicle or just equipping it with a piece of equipment that will make it easier to get into the vehicle. And then also the one thing that we are typically referring to as a vehicle that somebody can stay in their chair and ride in their chair if necessary, because we can also do lifts that would technically put a chair into a vehicle, and that's not actually wheelchair accessible. It's because the person can't be in it. So that's sort of where that difference in nomenclature comes from. So I'll go over some of the basics of the different types, and then Ryan will kind of talk about why we ask so many different questions about what you're going to be using it for. So the next slide will go into probably our most common type of vehicle that we sell, accessible minivans and SUVs, also sometimes referred to as a lowered floor minivan. And that is because they actually cut the floor out of the vehicle, lower it down. So if you ride into the vehicle in a wheelchair, you can stay in your chair and have enough headroom to get into. There are essentially two different types of these vehicles, a rear entry and a side entry. That's pretty self-explanatory as far as what the difference is. One you get in from the side, one you get in from the rear of the vehicle. If you can go on to the next slide, I'll go into a little bit more detail about each of the different types. Some of the benefits of the side entry accessible vehicle. We have minivans, and now the Chevy Traverse SUV is being modified. And the pictures on the right give one of the things that's one of the biggest benefits of the side entry is your versatility in the seating configuration. On most of the vehicles that we lower the floor on that are a side entry, you can remove one or both of the front seats, so either the driver position or the front passenger position. You can pull the seat out and actually ride or drive from your wheelchair. And then also the second row or the center row has the ability for somebody to be secured in their wheelchair and be able to ride in their chair there. One of the biggest benefits is the versatility of the headroom and interior space. So most people are able to get into any of these lowered floor minivans. We have customers that are 6'1", 6'2", 6'4", use a power chair and can still get into these vehicles. There are obviously some exceptions to that, but a majority of the people are going to be able to fit into these vehicles. One of the benefits is the parking benefit. You can deploy the ramp onto curbs, so you can parallel park. You don't have to necessarily find a spot in a parking lot with the stripes on the side. You can parallel park if there is a spot for that. They are not a one size fits all, so depending on the vehicle that's being converted and the type of conversion, some of them will work better for different types of chairs, different types of disabilities. And so that is one of the reasons why we will get into all kinds of questions for you as far as what mobility device do you use and what is your disability before we start recommending a vehicle for you. The next slide will talk about the rear entry van. Some of the benefits of that are most of the ramps are actually manual, so there are fewer things to go wrong. I always say that A spring and a hinge is really the only thing that can go wrong with the conversion portion of the vehicle, because there's one or two strong springs that allow the ramp to be lowered and lifted without too much effort on the person's part that is helping load and unload the person. And it's great for caregivers. So if the person that is in the wheelchair isn't going to try to be up in the front passenger position or the driver position, they can go in and either be in the second row of seats or the third row of seats. Very easy for somebody that is maybe pushing somebody in a manual chair up into the vehicle to get them in and out, back them down. It's also very beneficial for people that don't always find it easy to find a parking space with the hash marks on the side of the vehicle. You can use any normal parking spot and pull in there. The one drawback to that is you will be unloading into where vehicles are passing by. And as mentioned before, this is a manual ramp system, so the conversion is less expensive, and also the fact that less of the floor is cut out of the vehicle, so that also helps to keep the cost of the conversion down, so it can be more cost effective for people. And on the next slide, full-size vans have several different benefits. Because they are a larger vehicle, it is frequently easier to set up for 2 or more wheelchairs to be able to ride in the vehicle. As you can see in the picture here, there are lifts that are coming out of the rear of the van and lifts that are coming out of the side of the van. And it may be a little less obvious, but on the right-hand side, that picture is actually a lift that tucks up underneath the vehicle. So the lift doesn't come inside the doorway and block the doorway when it is stowed, whereas the one on the left folds in. Both of them have lots of great uses, but there are some benefits to both of them. The under the floor one, you can still get people in and out even if you don't deploy the lift. There are a variety of lifts obviously available for that. Where you put them will determine what sort of seating configurations will work for you. But depending on which placement of the lift that we use and how we set up the seats on the inside, you might be able to accommodate more passengers in the full-size van because you can have 2 or 3 rows of seats still and still have the one person in a wheelchair, or if you need more wheelchairs, you can set it up with fewer seats and more space for wheelchairs. Some of the other benefits is you do have more ground clearance, and you can also have greater towing capabilities with a full-size van than a minivan. On the next one, next slide, please. The accessible truck benefits. One of the biggest with the trucks is that you get better ground clearance. Here in Oklahoma, we have a lot of people that live out on farms and like to drive in pastures, and the lowered floor minivans are not good for that. So getting a truck allows them to get in and check on the cows and do other things. Also, we have a lot of folks that live in rural areas that have some gravel and dirt roads that tend to get a lot of washout, and just gives you better ability to go through without bottoming out your vehicle and doing damage to the vehicle. Also with the truck, just like the full-size van, you can have some towing capabilities that wouldn't be possible with the minivan. And then we do get the occasional person that the whole reason that they want a truck is because it's not a minivan. Some people just don't want to drive a minivan, and this is an option that can go for that. Another nice thing about the truck is you can have a 4-wheel drive option. That does have an impact on which mobility devices will fit into the vehicle. So that is something that you will want to consider when you're looking at different options. The trucks can be set up for either the driver's side or the passenger side. Unfortunately, the conversion can't be done on both sides of the same vehicle. And the picture that we have on the screen has a wheelchair in the spot on the platform, and the original manufactured seat can also be placed on that platform. So if somebody else is driving it, they can still drive the vehicle, and then you can pull that out and the person can drive from their chair as well. On the next screen, we have a few things that we like to keep in mind when we're considering the trucks. NMITA approved ATC conversions only. And what that is some of the vehicles that do have been tested and are approved already. Some of them are in the works of being approved, and some of them haven't been approved yet. And so we only sell the vehicles that are approved through NMITA. We typically don't keep them in stock just because the type of truck that you need, whether it's two-wheel drive or four-wheel drive, and what motor you need for towing or not towing, and whether or not it's on the driver's side or the passenger side, it would just be so difficult to keep everything that everybody needs. So we typically order those and have them converted for the person that needs them. Over the years, there have been several truck companies that have done conversions of the vehicles, and unfortunately they have gone out of business, and now getting those service can be challenging because the first couple of years we can usually get parts for those, and then after a period of time those parts run out, and then it becomes difficult to actually work on those conversions. The truck is only configured for one position, and that has an impact on your trade-in value. So that's something that you want to keep in mind too. Some people, buy a vehicle and they drive it for 10, 12, 15 years until the wheels fall off. That's less of an issue. If you're the type of person that likes to get a new vehicle every 2 or 3 years, this may not be the best vehicle for you. And that's one of the many things that we discuss when looking at what type of vehicle would work for you. We did have some questions submitted, which I believe are on the next slide. Yes.
I'm going to interrupt you. We did have an interesting note when you were talking about the side entry van, how it can be deployed on a curb. Somebody asked, will it bend the ramp?
No. So the ramps are rated, most of them now are rated at 1,000 pounds, and even some of the older ones were rated at 800 pounds. And so the ramp folds out or comes out. And you can turn off the kneel system, which is the back end of the vehicle squatting. So if you're going to a curb, you may not want to do that. So you can turn that off. The ramp still deploys, creates a bridge, and you can go right over it, and it doesn't bend the ramp. And it's a great way to get out, and a little bit safer way so you don't have to go out into traffic. That is an excellent question. Some of the other questions that we've had, a lot of questions were submitted that were very similar, and they were all around converting your own vehicle and limits to what vehicles are converted. So most manufacturers have specific vehicles that they will convert. Typically, they will be converting the most recent body style of whatever vehicle it is. So as an example, the Toyota Sienna came out with a new body style in 2021, and Braun is only converting the 2021 and newer vehicles since they had to redesign how they did that conversion. They go through an actual manufacturing process, just like the typical Toyota or Chevrolet or Chrysler manufacturing plant, where it's got the stations, and that will allow them to just convert very specific vehicles. Another thing to keep in mind is there are only certain trim levels that they can convert because of wiring harness and things that go into the conversion. And also because they are cutting into the vehicle, they have to have a clean Carfax with no car accidents on it, or at least no major ones. If there's a minor fender bender, sometimes we can get away with that. And they also frequently have mileage limits. So this is a great reason why it's excellent to have a conversation with a mobility specialist, determine what your current vehicle is, if that is an option, or if maybe it's better to have a vehicle that's already been converted as your purchase. The next question that we had was, are there any electric and or hybrid vehicles available? And the short answer is yes. A little bit more explanation. The Toyota Sienna, starting in 2021 with that new body style, all of them are hybrid. And so in order to continue to convert Toyotas, we had to figure out how to convert a hybrid. And there are manufacturers out there that do convert that vehicle. So that is the hybrid option. And there are Ford Transits out there that are all electric, and we have started putting lifts in and modifying vehicles in the electric Transit. And then Vince had a question that said, as someone wanting to get into an adapted truck 4x4, it seems like everyone has tried to steer me back to a van or SUV? What resources are available to help justify something with better ground clearance, off-road capabilities? And there are all sorts of reasons why the person might be steering you away from. So without knowing all the details, I would say have a conversation with a mobility specialist and let them know what you're trying to do and why you need the 4x4 and or ground clearance. And if you have questions as far as why they keep steering you back, because it could be the size of a wheelchair, it could be the type of disability, it could be how you're using it. There could be any number of reasons. It's hard to say why they might be steering you back, but I would definitely just recommend having a conversation with one or multiple mobility specialists just to make sure that you're getting all your questions answered. And I think that is all the questions that we had. And so Ryan will be following up and talking about the needs analysis.
Thank you, Adam. Yeah, for those of you that may have joined a little bit later, I'm Ryan Green with United Access here in Lenexa, Kansas. I've been in the industry for about 12 years. I have a spinal cord injury myself, and been driving with hand controls, transferring in and out of cars until I moved into a power chair back in 2012, and have been driving the lowered floor minivans ever since. So I'm going to talk about the needs analysis, which is maybe an over sensationalized word for, it's similar to like those of you that use wheelchairs and maybe have to get a new wheelchair every 5 to 7 years, and you're having a conversation with um, the vendor that's working on getting you that product. It's very similar here. So let's go on to the next slide. We're gonna always ask several questions, probably even before we talk about product, whether over the phone or in person. We need to get to know you before focusing on the products we offer. Sometimes it's a company that transports people with disabilities as well. Just like we need to talk about the needs of you and your family, we want to know about a business and their needs and the intended use of the vehicle, whether they may own a couple of group homes and want to transport one or two individuals out of the group home, a couple times a week for activities away from the home, or if they're a non-emergency medical transportation company that has individuals in mobility devices in and out of their vans 10, 15, 20 times a day. So we're going to rattle off some questions here and kind of put you through an example of how we do it. So the first several questions I ask are, how did you hear about us? Are we your first stop? Where else have you been looking? A lot of folks, which is great nowadays, do a lot of research and come to our showrooms or call us that have already built a list of questions after learning some research through Google. We want to know what you learned. And if you've spoken with one of us at United Access before, there are manufacturers that convert vehicles and sell directly to you online. Are they one of those folks similar, or are they similar to us and have an actual showroom of products that you can come and check out? What did you learn from them, and how was your experience? Is there anything you experienced with them that maybe we could do a little bit differently here? If you've spoken with one of us before, chances are we would have documented the visit. Even if it was several years ago when you were just inquiring about products at the time, but we're not ready or needed to purchase anything then. Now maybe it's a scenario where your disability has progressed, where you need the product now. So we like looking back at kind of where you started and helping you gather information for what you might need today. Then we'll kind of dive in a little bit personal, but we're going to want to know the nature of your disability. Was it an accident? Were you born with a disability? Were you diagnosed in your later years with MS, and how is it progressing? What are you currently using for transportation, and what really is the struggle there? this will help us decide if maybe a hitch carrier lift or some of the products that um, Adam mentioned earlier that aren't the full wheelchair accessible conversions. It may be a rear mounted lift that will suffice at the time, or if your limitations are as such where the safest and most convenient approach at this time would be a fully wheelchair accessible vehicle. Also, we're going to have a better idea of how to serve you if you're a person like me that has a spinal cord injury compared to someone that has ALS or progressive type of disability. What's the make and model of your mobility device, and do you plan to drive, or is driving um, no longer in the future for you? Would you prefer to be transported in the middle section or the front passenger area if not a driver? If you're in a manual chair or scooter or powered chair, whether front wheel drive, mid wheel drive, or rear wheel drive powered chair, there's certain positions that work best in the vehicles and that are compatible with electronic lockdown systems or just other types of wheelchair tie downs that the vehicles may come with. Go to the next slide. Some more questions. What is your timeline? What's your financial situation and budget? Do you have any third-party funding helping you, such as maybe the Veterans Administration or a state vocational rehabilitation program? Do you need financing? How much can you plan for on monthly payment wise? We often have financing promotions available. It's kind of geared around your FICO score. Usually the higher scores, which are 740, 750 and above, will have a better rate and even maybe some promos available with our financing. But even those with situations where your credit score is under a 740, there are still options available that there's state programs out there that offer low interest loans that I've actually utilized myself because there was a time in my life where my credit score was maybe a 650, 660, but my debt to income ratio was really pretty strong. I was able to utilize a low interest loan program where if going to a bank, my interest rate would have been more like 8 or 9%. The state program that I worked with was 5%. So that makes quite a difference if you're purchasing a vehicle and you get that help. So finally, what product really interests you? And then I'm going to share with what I see with our conversations and what I might suggest. This is where having the ability to be in our building is so critical to make sure that we suggest an accurate product that with your opinion in mind as well. Of course, we will talk about this a little bit later in our questions as far as vehicles. Certain makes and models are better fit for some rather than others, not only with door opening heights and doorway widths, but with space and to maneuver as well that Adam touched on. We are always going to discuss and recommend what we feel is the best long-term solution for you. Again, if you have a progressive disability, maybe spending the money on a seat that helps you in and out of the vehicle doesn't really make sense if in 6 months from now, you're no longer going to be able to make those transfers. We've seen that happen in the past where even a time where we've strongly suggested against spending $10,000 to $13,000 on a seat that'll lift you in and out of a truck, when really that would be a great down payment for a better long-term answer on a different type of vehicle. When it's all said and done, I mean, you're going to be the decision maker. We just offer our expertise from our own lifestyles and from what we've helped people with in the past. With that, I'm going to jump into some of our questions. Again, like with some of Adam's questions, there are several that were very similar as far as what vehicles have the most space. What's better for me? I'm tall, my power chair is large, side versus rear. Again, I'm gonna I'm going to encourage you to get in touch with a dealer in your area so that we can really go through that needs analysis with you and get you in and out of some vehicles, because we can give you numbers and dimensions all day from what we see from the manufacturer. But there's nothing like the reality of rolling in and out of a vehicle and you feeling that headroom and space. I have my own personal preferences as far as my opinion on ride or noise. But I've had instances in the past where I say one thing and my customer comes back after a test driving 3 or 4 options and their perspective's a little bit different. And I'm okay with that. That's great. I'd love to be proven wrong. Deborah had a question regarding the Jazzy Power Chair. We would want to get and fitting into the driver position. I think she's referencing like a electronic lockdown system driving from her power chair. I can accurately I can accurately not every model of Jazzy Power Chair works. There's gosh 8 or 9 different types of Jazzy chairs. It has to do with ground clearance and to be able to roll over the docking base and a few other parameters. But yeah, a lot of it has to do with ground clearance. But we're going to be able to have the tools, even over the phone, to go on to some of the manufacturer's website and plug in what the make and model of your chair is, and it'll tell us what lockdown device is most accurate and different driving positions that will work with your power chair. And then Raymond, regarding the vehicle or the chair first, and all I can say to this one is it really depends. It can be tricky for if you're 6'3" when you were standing and you tell me you have a power chair on order that has tilt and recline and raise functions, I will not recommend any vehicle with an in-floor ramp typically, as the fold-out option provides a couple more inches of headroom. So it would probably be okay to go ahead and purchase like they call it an XT conversion or a fold-out ramp conversion. If you're 5'6", average weight, then we will more than likely you'll you'll be able to fit in any type of vehicle in conversion typically. If you're planning to be a driver in a manual chair that has like the XT conversion and a 15-inch lowered floor, that option probably isn't going to work for you because your line of sight is going to be very challenged if you can even see over the steering wheel at all. Anyway, in the end, Raymond, I've had both scenarios, and although we have made some mistakes in the past and we made a call before a power chair arrives, we're always going to have a plan B so that you're not going to feel stuck. And there's folks that use limited mobility devices like these collapsible folding power chairs that they just kind of they like the idea of being able to roll in one of our vans. It's just the ease of use, but they can still walk. It's just where distance is a problem. And so they can come up the ramp and we can show them how to secure that device, and they can stand and get in between the 2 seats and drive away that way. So we see that a lot as well. Anyways, both options are available, and now it's time to flip it over to Steve Kinsler again, who's in our Kansas City, Missouri location. So Steve, take it away.
Thank you, Ryan. So now the wonderful day has happened. You found a vehicle. But before we get started, a reminder, my name's Steven. I'm at the Kansas City location. I have been with United Access since 2004, so sneaking up on my 20th year. And I've been a user of adaptive equipment for driving for the last 30 years. So now you've come to that point where we've gone through the needs analysis, we've gone through vehicle selection and everything like that, and we've come across or identified a vehicle that's going to work for you. That vehicle is going to be in one of 3 different possibilities. That vehicle is going to be either at a location of, the United Access location that you're working with. In that case, theoretically, paperwork-wise, we're pretty much set up to be everything done within that same day. We also do have vehicles that may be on order that we order from the manufacturer, coming in from Braun, VMI, or any one of our other manufacturers. So that process could be delaying the final vehicle paperwork for a week to 2 weeks to 6 weeks, depending on what stage that particular vehicle's in. Or at United Access, we do share inventory amongst all of our locations. Because of that, usually within about a week to 10 days, we can have a vehicle that's located at one location shipped to another United Access location. In some cases, it could be much quicker. Obviously, a transfer from our Lenexa store to our Kansas City store is just a matter of an hour. However, we can bring stuff in from Portland or from Buffalo or from other locations, and we normally would expect about a 7-day turnaround time for that. So prior to that vehicle arriving and prior to the actual day of signing, there are some things that we would like to have in place. We would like to, of course, find and make sure that you have all your financing in place, make sure all the I's and T's are dotted and crossed. Therefore, when we get to that process of actual paperwork and the day of delivery, it's a very smooth process. It should take just about an hour or so. Now, one of the things that United Access does offer is we are a dealership. We are a car dealership. We're a very specialized car dealership. So we can offer in-house financing options. We can offer vehicle service contracts to extend coverage on that vehicle from standard 3 or 36,000 mile warranties with new conversions up to and beyond 10 years or 120,000 miles, 125,000 miles, depending on the type of conversion. So we do have those vehicle service contracts available to extend your coverage and your protection. And the nice thing about the ones that we do offer is that they will cover the vehicle chassis and the vehicle conversion components. So ramp motors, door motors, things like that or related conversion are covered as well. These are all things that we would have discussed and in place prior to us actually doing the signing on that particular day that we're ready to go. In regards to insurance, we do advise and recommend, and in most cases, in most states, it is required that a vehicle be insured prior to taking delivery of the vehicle. One of the things that we do strongly recommend with our vehicles is they do have a tremendous amount of adaptive equipment or additional equipment added to the vehicle. Therefore, we do recommend and will provide to your insurance agents any equipment recommendations or any additional equipment that is on that vehicle that is sent over to the insurance company to make sure that that can be covered as well. Last thing we would want to have happen is, say, for instance, someone goes out and buys a wheelchair accessible vehicle, has it insured as a regular vehicle, all of a sudden they have experienced an issue, a total loss situation, and if there is no coverage on the vehicle conversion, the insurance company will only pay for the vehicle chassis, and then an individual can miss out on $30,000, $40,000 of the equipment. And it's very hard to replace, obviously, a vehicle of that caliber and that price range. I would love to say that I get that right every single time. I do certainly encourage my customers to do that each and every time. However, I have had situations where customers have neglected to get that insurance. The particular individual that actually did lose their vehicle in a fire, they are in my hometown, which I live in a small town, so I knew exactly who it was, have known him for years, and this particular individual did not insure their conversion. Now, we're very fortunate in that they did have assistance from the state of Missouri, and Missouri was able to jump in on a one-time need emergency basis to get covered. So obviously, one of the things we want to do is make sure we have everything in place. United Access is also, as a dealership, we can take in wheelchair accessible vehicles as trade, and we can take in non-adaptive vehicles in on trade. One of the advantages of doing that is it will reduce your tax liabilities, because in most states you can actually deduct that from the conversion or the chassis cost and reduce your tax liabilities. Each individual state is different, but also for the most part, the wheelchair accessible portion, the conversion portion, is not subject to sales tax. So therefore, when we do paperwork, we usually will only reflect what the cost of the vehicle chassis is as opposed to the total price of the vehicle. You may be purchasing an $80,000 vehicle, but if you're only paying for the chassis, then you're really going to have sales tax at roughly that $40,000 range. You do want to check with your mobility specialist in each state to make sure you have everything that you need. In some cases, you do have to have prescriptions from doctors in order to make sure that there is no taxation there. Now, moving back into loan documentation. Of course, we want to make sure that we have insurance in place. Many of our lenders do have to have themselves listed as lien holders on the insurance and also as a total loss so that they are indeed in line in case something has happened to the vehicle. The other thing we want to make sure is anybody that appears on those loan documentation does have to be in the store to sign paperwork at that time or with us when we do paperwork. So when we have somebody come in, We do like to set time frame expectations as well. There may be installations that are being done at that time. Usually we like to have as much done as possible to make this process happen quickly. Usually if I do a regular vehicle that is not having a lot of additional equipment in, again, you could be done in 30 minutes to an hour. Sometimes when we have additional equipment in there, there may be fittings and other things that do take place. However, paperwork, again, standard-wise, is usually just about a half hour to an hour. The day of signing, one of the things that we want to make sure we have in place as well is that everyone has all of their identification in place. We need driver's licenses and things like that. Anything that was required by the lenders as well, we want to have that. We want to have the title for any trade-ins, make sure that there are no liens on those trades, that they are free and clear, or that we have what the payoffs are so we can have that take place very, very efficiently. Titling, United Access does hold title to all the vehicles that we do sell. So the titles will actually originate from United Access or from Braun Ability or from a different manufacturer, as each vehicle does have a title in place. That titling is usually done relatively quickly. We will not usually have that title in hand, as it does get held at our corporate office, but within about 7 to 10 days, you'll receive that title and be able to register your vehicle at that time. Warranty paperwork, we also will file any and all warranties for you related to the vehicle conversion or any of the equipment that you do have. That's something we do as a basically an extra service for our customer, but we also want to make sure that's all in place. And therefore, when you leave that dealership, you've got a vehicle that's fully warranted, fully covered, and fully gassed, cleaned, and washed. To step back to those vehicle service contracts, one of the things that we do look at the vehicle service contracts is an opportunity to protect that vehicle. For a lot of us, these vehicles do represent our lifeline for the most part. Imagine being without a vehicle for any length of time. Even the thought of missing it for one day is a scary process. Some of our vehicle contracts, or most of our vehicle contracts, would provide rental options as well. Please understand that not all rental options that are available will include individual driver vehicles. More likely it'll be a transport situation, but still we would have a vehicle available. So United Access is very fortunate that most of our locations do actually offer wheelchair accessible vehicles as an option for when you're having service done, or heck, even for a weekend, if you want to try one out, you're not sure if you want to buy one, try one out for a weekend and see if that's something that will work for you. Occasionally we do run specials as well, where we will deduct the cost of rentals if somebody does take one out for a weekend and decides to purchase. When we get through the whole process, we also do want to introduce the purchaser to our service department. Our service department is the lifeline for those vehicles as far as any conversions are concerned. United Access, some of our locations can also offer oil changes and tire rotations and other services. That's something you would certainly want to discuss. It's very, very important that this equipment be maintained. We do recommend every 6 months to have this equipment serviced and inspected. Usually, most of our locations will also offer complimentary for the first year. And then beyond that, again, it takes about a half hour to 45 minutes to an hour, depending on the level of equipment that is in the vehicle. But it's important that you maintain that equipment. It seems often that we don't mind taking our vehicles in for oil changes, but sometimes we don't see people bringing their vehicle in for their conversions and having those cleaned and inspected. And those are the ones we usually see for any kind of service or any kind of emergency things that may pop up. Also, just as a general kind of side note, United Access does offer an information line that's available 24 hours. So if you do have any questions about your vehicle after hours or over the weekends, and there's not a mobility specialist available to talk to, you're more than welcome to call in as well and check in with us. And again, that's available 24 hours for service information. Now that we've kind of gone through that, the beautiful thing for us is to be able to see somebody actually drive away in their vehicles and achieve a new level of independence. It gives me goosebumps each and every time that I'm lucky enough to be a part of that. And I think for myself and the other gentlemen that are on this call, Ryan and Ashton and Adam, we got into this business because we know what kind of difference the vehicle can make and what kind of independence it can provide. And so for us, it's great for us to be able to pass that along. So guys, I think we might all agree that we got lucky. Somehow we all ended up in this line of work, but I don't think we really want to see ourselves anywhere else or picture ourselves doing anything else. We did get some questions as well that I'd like to address, if you don't mind. From Inga, resale value on a vehicle. Resale value on a wheelchair accessible vehicle. Does it keep its value or does it decline quickly? That is a great question. The vehicles actually do tend to follow market trends. So obviously at this point in time, vehicles are kind of at a higher value. One of the things that we do to value a vehicle is we look at the overall vehicle market And we also look at some of the options that are out there as far as vehicle valuation components are. So Kelley Blue Book, auction values, that will give us a value on vehicles and kind of what the actual vehicle chassis would be worth. And then we use historical aging on the vehicle conversion to really come up with what would be a buyback figure or a value of that vehicle. We also do go through a regular reconditioning process. What we do is we evaluate each and every vehicle, check for any dings, dents, damages, anything like that, anything related to the conversion equipment. We make sure that everything goes through an extensive reconditioning process. So for the most part, what we would see when a vehicle does come in that's wheelchair accessible, we will see that vehicle and we will make sure that each and everything works on it. Now, what affects the resale value? Obviously, market conditions are one option. The other thing, and Adam had mentioned earlier with the trucks, is that if it does have a more limited market, same with full-size vans. If it's a limited market and if we can value that vehicle, who we can sell that vehicle to, then unfortunately we do have to kind of reflect the fact that we may not be able to sell that vehicle for 6 to 7 or 8 months. So that is really what's going to affect those values. I wish I could tell you that they don't decline in value quickly. I can say that they do hold their value. They do have a greater resale value, but they also have a more expensive value to them. And I just happened to see on the chat with expensive insurance, there can be a little bit of expensive insurance. It's going to be a rider for additional medical equipment that you want to have added to the vehicle. It's not a great deal. In most cases, most insurance companies will actually do that rider for a certain dollar amount. On my particular vehicle, I added an additional $25,000, and it's roughly $148 every 6 months. So it's a small amount of investment to ensure that if something does happen to the vehicle, then I will be able to keep that vehicle and get into another one. So hopefully that was helpful on that one. Now, from Kevin, are there minivans with a lift, an occupied lift, rather than a fold-out ramp? Long ago, way back when I started, back in 2004, we actually did have minivans that had lifts in them that an individual could ride up into them. Generally speaking, we would put a lift into a Dodge Grand Caravan or a Chevrolet Astro or a GMC Safari. We really lost that option in 2008 when the Dodge Grand Caravan went to side curtain airbags. When side curtain airbags basically came about, then we pretty much did not have the option of being able to do any kind of lift anymore that would lift up a wheelchair in the side of the vehicle and put someone into the side of the vehicle and remain in that vehicle. In addition, the fact that they have the stow and go seats also made it more difficult. So unfortunately, we do not really have any type of occupied lifts that are available for minivans. Now, from James, the best wheelchair lift, one that raises or loads from the ground into the vehicle, or one the wheelchair has to be pushed from the ground up a ramp into the vehicle. It is really going to be dependent on what a person does need and what their individual needs are. Say, for instance, if I am an individual or independent driver, for me, a minivan is a great option because it allows me to push a button, the ramp deploys after the door opens, and I can roll right up in and everything closes up. A full-size van is a more difficult option for me just because I would have to then add a lot of additional equipment to that vehicle to make the doors operational, to be remote, and also to be able to make the lift operational via remote. So in that case, it makes the vehicle a lot more expensive, whereas the minivans had a lot of that equipment already standard in the vehicle. Again, the needs analysis will kind of help us run through all those different options, whereas sometimes a full-size van may be a great option if somebody has a larger family. If they're planning on driving from the wheelchair, that's really kind of not an option as far as being able to get up to the front driver's seat in a wheelchair, unfortunately. So you have to have a situation where someone's going to be able to transfer. So we do look at all those particular things, but for the most part, the minivans are really outselling the full-size vans, probably about 10 to 1, just because they do provide a lot more versatility, a lot more riding options and where they could be. Also, access to the front passenger seat is huge in the lowered floor side entry minivans, which is great for a lot of our couples that are still wanting to maintain the lifestyle and that whole relationship of wife and spouse and husband together.
I appreciate it, Stephen. Hey guys, my name's Ashton Kennerly. Again, I'm a mobility specialist here at the Northwest Houston location. I myself am a wheelchair user. I utilize hand controls on my vehicle and some of the other mobility equipment, but I wanted to go over some additional important information that you need to know. The additional important information that I'd like to discuss today is rental wheelchair accessible vehicles. So here at United Access, we offer wheelchair accessible vans for rent. one of the best ways to rent a van is you get with your rental coordinator and to kind of give a little bit of insight of what you're looking to accomplish. Maybe you're needing a vehicle for short-term, long-term use. If that's the case, we have daily, weekly, and monthly rates. But if you're interested in purchasing a vehicle, I highly recommend you try before you buy. So rent a van, especially if you're new to mobility vehicles and you're not sure what they're about and you want to get a really good hands-on experience for what they have to offer. The best way to do that is rent one for a weekend or for a few days out of the week and bring it back. We offer Toyota Siennas, a Chrysler Pacifica, Honda Odyssey, and most of them are going to be side entry wheelchair accessible vehicles. And the great thing about it is they're new. You're going to, we're in 2024 right now, so we have 2023 year model vehicles available for rent and some 2024s. So every location is a little bit different. We offer rear entry and side entry, but some just offer side entry. But again, get with your nearest United Access dealer and let them know that you're interested in renting a van, and they can definitely schedule that for you. We understand that everyone's situation is different. Like I said, so if you're not in the market for a vehicle, then just try one, and maybe later on down the road, you'll know exactly what you want. Another thing I wanted to kind of go over is some equipment that can be installed in accessible vehicles. I myself, like I said, use hand controls. I'm paralyzed from the waist down, so I don't have any use of my lower extremities. The only way to operate my vehicle is with use of hand controls. I use a brand called MPS. It's a standard hand control. It's a push-pull function. It gets mounted underneath the steering column, or under the dash, I should say. It allows me to accelerate and brake the vehicle. This is a great option for individuals who are trying to be independent, who want to get behind the wheel and operate the vehicle safely. There's other options such as the Featherlight hand controls that are made by SureGrip. I've utilized the Featherlight option a few times. It's a great option if you're, I'd say maybe you have limited hand function, maybe you're quadriplegic or have some other challenges that are keeping you from using manual or hand controls like that I use. So there's different options for everybody. Everybody's different. And in order to figure out what's going to be the best mobility device for you to operate the vehicle safely, you need to get with your local certified driver's rehab specialist. They're going to go over the different options that you have available to you and figure out what's going to be the best, safe, most secure option for you to operate the vehicle safely. In order to accomplish that, you're going to first step is you need a referral or a prescription signed by your physician. Once you've accomplished that, then you can get with your certified driver's rehab specialist. They'll schedule you in for evaluation, go everything like I mentioned earlier. And then once you have completed their program and gone to the DMV, passed your driver's test, have proper restrictions on your driver's license, then you can meet with your mobility specialist, and then they will be allowed to install a mobility device that your driver's rehab specialist recommended and install that into your vehicle. One of the other things that I wanted to go over is transfer seat bases. So transfer seat bases are a great option if you have the availability to transfer out of your mobility device. So either you're in a scooter, manual wheelchair, power wheelchair. If you have the ability to transfer out of your wheelchair like I do, and you are currently own a lowered floor minivan, or you're interested in purchasing a wheelchair accessible vehicle, this is a piece of equipment that can be installed only in lowered floor conversion vehicles. It can be installed either in the driver's side or the passenger section. This will allow you to go from your mobility device once you enter the vehicle, transfer over into the seat, and then you're sitting in the actual factory seat, like I said, either in the driver's section or the passenger section. I myself love that option. if I'm going to utilize a wheelchair accessible vehicle, that would be probably a solution that I would definitely want to go with. So get with your local mobility specialist, inquire about it, say, hey, this is something I want to learn more about, and they would be glad to give you more information on a transfer seat base. On to the next slide, please. So some more information I'd like to go over is NMETA and QAP. You may be wondering, what is NMETA and what is QAP? So NMETA is the National Mobility Equipment Dealers Association. That's a very big deal when purchasing a wheelchair accessible vehicle or any mobility equipment that's going into a vehicle. So the quality assurance program is designed to guarantee that mobility equipment dealers provide the highest quality service and products to consumers. And the reason why that's important is because whenever you're purchasing a wheelchair accessible vehicle, you want to ensure that the vehicle is crash test rated. You want to ensure that the vehicle has not been compromised in any way from the modifications that have been done to it. And most importantly, you want to be safe. Like the picture that we have here on the slide, this is a family that was in an automotive accident. And because they were in a vehicle that was designed by Braun Ability, which they are NMETA members, that vehicle had the integrity to withstand that crash and keep that family safe. So they were very, very happy that they were in that vehicle when the accident happened. Had it been another product that did not go by the NMETA guidelines, who knows what the consequences of that could have been. So just something to keep in mind whenever you're in the market for purchasing a wheelchair accessible vehicle or equipment, look for NMETA. That right there, I can't stress how important that is. And that's what separates us from other manufacturers. Everybody, well, I would say everybody, but some of the misconception that people have that all mobility vehicles are the same. That's not necessarily the case. So we have strict guidelines that we had to abide by whenever we're constructing these vehicles and whatever equipment that's being installed, all the way from our technicians, then how they're trained, and whatever new technology is available. All of that kind of goes into play whenever we're looking for mobility solutions, and that just falls down the line to our consumers. So our highest priority is to make sure that you're safe and that you're secure and that you're using the best equipment and that everything is crash test rated, and that so on to the next thing I want to talk about is insurance. So being NMETA members is one of the things that we have to go over with you is insurance. So whenever you're purchasing a vehicle, you want to make sure that that vehicle is completely covered by your insurance provider. So your mobility specialist will go over that with you, making sure that you have the proper coverage for your equipment and that not only the vehicle is covered, but your equipment is covered as well. So that's something to keep in mind whenever you're purchasing a wheelchair accessible vehicle, is to make sure that not only the conversion is covered, but also your additional equipment that is in that vehicle is covered. On to the next slide, please. So some of the questions that have been submitted, Jacqueline had a question. She says, I haven't driven since my spinal surgery and I have no idea what accommodations I need. How do I begin? Well, Jacqueline, the best way to start is get with your driver's rehab specialist that's nearest you. Set up a consultation with them, let them do an evaluation of you, see what is going to be the best fit for you. Once you've accomplished that, then reach out to your local United Access, get with a mobility specialist, and they will kind of put all that together for you and figure out what's going to be the most safest option and most reliable option for you. The next question is from David. David asks, what is the best option, purchasing or renting? Well, the answer to that, David, is both. Definitely recommend renting before you buy. I almost to all my customers recommend that option, especially if you're new to mobility vehicles. I mean, it's kind of like if you wanted to go buy just a regular vehicle off any other car lot, you're going to want to take it around the block, test it out. But I understand not everybody is going to be a driver. So some of our customers are passenger only. So have a family member, your mom, dad, aunt or uncle rent a vehicle for you, have it for the weekend or a few days out of the week, get acquainted with the vehicle. That way you have all the information that you need and you're fully confident on the vehicle that's going to suit you and your family best. And whenever you're ready to make that investment, you know exactly what you want and you can make that purchase with confidence. The next question from Tina. Tina says, I am a manual wheelchair user and I want to drive from my chair. Is that something I can do? Absolutely, Tina. That is definitely something you can do, but I want to let you know that most manual wheelchairs do not have head restraint. In order to operate the vehicle safely, you need to have a head restraint, meaning you need something that's going to brace the back of your head in the case of a collision. So our main priority is that you're safe. And so whenever you're driving from manual wheelchair, talk about that with your mobility specialist, and they will kind of go over that with you and let you know that there is some options with additional equipment in the vehicle that can provide a head restraint while you're in your manual wheelchair. So the answer to that is yes. But again, different vehicles have different restrictions as far as equipment, but there is some applications out there that can give you the head restraint, that give you the options to drive from a manual wheelchair. So that's about it for the questions today. Again, I appreciate y'all taking the time to meet with us on our webinar. I'm going to pass it back to Mo. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. So just big shout out to Adam, Ryan, Stephen, and Ashton. Thanks for the very informative information.